The Observer's Calendar for January 2025 on episode 463 of the Actual Astronomy Podcast. I'm Chris, and joining me is Shane. We are amateur astronomers who love looking up at the night sky, and this podcast is for everybody who enjoys going out under the stars. So, how was your Christmas, Shane?
Not too bad. A little bit different. I told you my mom injured herself and is in the hospital,
Yeah,
and so we had a mobile Christmas. The
nice.
family, so my dad, my brother, his wife, kids, my wife, we all went to the hospital and hung out with mom on Christmas Eve, and then Christmas Day, a big get together with my wife's family. So it was quite
Nice.
nice. Lots of good food, lots of great visits. It was really enjoyable, and it's nice to be not working. So I'm
Yes.
also loving that part of it. How was your Christmas?
Yeah, just pretty quiet. It warmed up right sort of for Christmas Day. It was warming up a couple days prior, but not quite as warm as the forecast as always. But
Hmm.
Christmas Day really started to warm up, so we came out here to the cabin. Been out here ever since. Sort of split Christmas between home and the cabin, but yeah, stayed out here this year to try to get in the first light, which we'll talk about in the second episode. So. Any astronomy goodies under the tree for you, Shane?
Not really. I mentioned a couple episodes ago, I think that I won an auction for a TMB Super Mono
Um,
14 millimeter, and that arrived sort of right around Christmas time, a few days beforehand. I haven't had a chance to use it, but it's in outstanding shape. Like
mm,
it really looks like it's never been used. Like there's not even any slight markings on the barrel or anything like
mm.
that. So
Yeah,
I'm
well, those
excited to,
those
sorry?
TMB products, they hold up over time.
That's right. They're built to last. So
Yeah,
so yeah, I want to give that a try at some point
good.
here and see how it does. I think it'll be really really nice actually for hydrogen alpha viewing. Like
Mm.
that 12 to 14 millimeter focal length just seems to be the sweet spot in my H alpha telescope. So yeah, probably won't get much of that in until it warms up again. And we just keep fighting these clouds here too. Like it just seems like it's a nonstop cloud or variable to full cloudiness
Oh
battle.
man.
Like every night, the daytimes aren't bad, but every night it seems to cloud over.
Yeah, like we had Friday forecast to be really quite a good night,
Hmm.
and as the evening approached, it was forecasting that we'd have more cloud extending into the day, and then as the day dawned, there was then cloud later, but sort of after midnight, and then on the next update, it was just this sandwich just kept closing until there was maybe an hour of clear sky, of which, I did walk out on the deck and look up on Friday evening, and you could sort of look to the left and look to the right and see the cloud decks and just this, giant sucker hole. Spent about 30 or 40 minutes passing overhead kind of thing was about it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but maybe our luck will turn.
Yeah.
Did you get any Astro goodies during the holiday season?
Yeah, my wife bought me the Atlas of Messier Objects, which
Hmm.
is by Ronald Stoyan. I strangely have the first edition kind of. I think someone loaned it to me. I thought it was Mike, but he says that he didn't. And
Hmm.
so anyway, and he bought the second edition as well. So this is the second edition. I really like the first edition. It's huge. It's a giant like 6 pound book, I think, kind of thing. So it's definitely for sort of sitting at a desk and reading. Don't want to fall asleep with that one sort of propped up on your chest. You'll never wake up again if it clocks you one.
It's a
But
great Messier guide, though. Maybe one of the best ones.
yeah, do you have it?
Yeah, I do. The second edition. Yeah.
Yeah, and as you said, yeah, it's one of the best guides. They really went all out on it, and there's images, lots of sketches, not sketches for every object, but lots of sketches in there. So yeah, it's quite a nice book.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anything else?
I got a set of the Kendrick Dew heaters. They actually arrived on Christmas Eve. I
Oh,
bought
wow.
three, bought the 6 inch band for well, this is for the 7 inch, but they said to get the 6 inch heating band, and then like two very large eyepiece wraps. to help inhibit dew from or frost from forming more than anything. We don't really get much dew here,
Mhm.
which is a little bit strange because I'm right at or just off of the lake. But we don't get as much dew or frost here as in Regina. But certainly it can get pretty frosty. Last night wasn't even that frosty. On Christmas Eve, it was nuts. But anyhow, these dew heaters will prevent some of that frost from forming on the gear. So
Mhm.
was kind of giving that a try last night, as we'll talk about in the next show.
Yeah, cool.
Best gift though was the clear skies to try out the 7-inch telescope.
Yeah, and I was there for night two, and wow, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Just
Yeah,
wow.
people can listen to the next show if they want.
Yeah.
Meant to mention when we last recorded, which was at least a couple weeks ago now, but
Mm.
Antillo Danko, the creator of the Clear Sky Clock, he passed away November 28th, I think it was.
Yeah, I found out about this from a work colleague that I used to work with closely, but not anymore. We're on different teams, and I ran into him at the Italian Star Deli in Regina,
Mm,
and he mentioned this to me, and I was a little sad after that.
yeah,
He Antilla was a really well. I didn't know him personally, but just the work he did with the clear sky chart seemed like he's quite a selfless individual.
yeah. I talked to him a few times over the years, and even thought about at one point having him on the show or whatever. And because I talked to him, I guess 3 years ago, because I set up a Clear Sky chart for this general location here. And anyway, we had kind of gone back and forth a bit at that time. But yeah, just I think he was sick for a while there with lung cancer. It said even though he was a non-smoker. So
Oh
yeah,
wow.
it's too bad. It's a big loss for the astronomy community and his family for sure. So
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah, it's too bad. On sunnier news, I've received some, well, at least one spare copy anyway. We'll see if I ever get any more of the 2025 Observers calendar. Maybe we can do a bit of a Patreon supporter giveaway.
Yeah, for sure. Like do a random draw of active Patreon supporters.
Yeah, so if anybody is an active Patreon supporter of the actual astronomy podcast, then your name will go to that. We haven't had a new Patreon supporter in a long time. We've got lots of people who renew, but and certainly appreciate that. But if anybody does want to support us for whatever amount, we don't really care how much goes into the pot, so to speak, but it does help to cover our costs and expenses as those come due, especially at this time of year. I had one there for 110, you had one for 100 and something, and always seems like this is the time of year when we get a bunch of our bills coming due for whatever reason.
Yeah, the renewals start to come in, and good opportunity just to say thanks to all of the existing Patreon supporters. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, so we'll give people a couple weeks, I guess, and then we'll do the draw maybe yeah, in a
Towards
couple weeks time.
towards the end of January.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
It'll be a little bit later. The calendars were late getting to me because of the Canada Post strike. All
Mm.
right. So this month is our observers calendar for 2025. And I got to mention this, put this in the notes that I hope she doesn't mind me doing the call out, but Marie Noonan was working with me on the observers calendar, and she came up with a whole slew of interesting targets to put in the RASC Observers calendar. So these include things like when some of the more southerly declination or more declinated, anyway, objects culminate. So good nights to see like M7 or M79 or kind of like you name it, when those are well placed during a new moon period. And the other things that she put in are carbon stars, and she put in, let's see, some other lunar features like how we have the lunar X and such. Well,
Mm.
she's put in a few other targets that people might be interested to go take a look at. So anyway, you'll see those now. Shane is as we go forward. And January 1st will be our Happy New Year, I guess. This episode will come out a few days after that, though.
No, this should come out on the
Oh,
30th.
awesome.
Yep, yeah, so it
Oh,
will
yeah,
be
because we
just in
adjusted.
time. Yep.
We adjusted it. I'm never good with that. It's all good. Let's see. So January 1st, Happy New Year. I guess people will be listening to this on New Year's or a couple days after on the 365 Days of Astronomy. January 3rd, we have Venus as close as about a degree and a half from the moon. But the way that we see it is that from here anyway, the moon is about 5 degrees above and to the left of Venus. That's how it's
Okay.
going to appear to us.
I need to check to see what phase Venus is in right now because it seems brighter than usual. I don't know if you've gotten that sense or not, or if I'm just dreaming, but it just seems a touch brighter.
Yeah, it's getting close to one of its greatest elongations. That's coming up
Mm,
towards the end of the month, but I can check on the phase here pretty easy. I'm just looking at my software here now. Yeah, it's at about a gibbous, just over half phase. And yeah, so it's pretty big. Didn't bother looking at it last night, but yeah,
mhm.
it might be blinding in that big telescope.
Yeah, yeah, I think it would be. You might need a variable polarizer.
Yeah, shunt down all the way. Um, Quadratic meteors, they peak on the 3rd as well. And so they have a zenithal hourly rate, or you might see between 60 and the max anybody ever recorded was about 200 of these meteors. And this
Wow.
is, I think, the Quadratus. I think that was like an old-timey constellation, wasn't it?
Mm. I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but a ZHR of 60 to 200 is quite nice. There'll be a lot to see that night.
Yeah, I'm just looking it up here to see if I can find it really quick to see what it says. It's from Quadrans Muralis.
Okay.
Up by Boots. But anyway, it's this asteroid 2003 EH1, which may be the nucleus remnants of a comet or something like that, which
Mm.
is causing these meteors to be spread around the sun in orbit such that we intersect them on about January 3rd every year.
Okay.
Saturn on January 4th is just over half a degree south of the moon, and there is an occultation by Saturn of the moon for some parts of the southern US and much of South America. For us, we see them just under 5 degrees apart. So we'll look good in binoculars. And then the following night, we have Neptune, which is about 6 or 7 degrees
Mm.
apart from the moon for us anywhere. But anyway, but areas further to our east, or like in the UK or Europe, we'll see a much closer approach of the moon and Neptune, and the moon and Saturn as well.
Hmm. I'm really curious about the view of Neptune and Uranus through your 7 inch.
Mm.
Those two planets, you do need a little, some aperture to really start pulling in the color and to discern a disk. And a 4 inch refractor, you can start to get a bit of that, but that 7 inch I think would be amazing.
Yeah, I meant to take a look at them last night. It's just, like you well put it last night. You can kind of just get lost in meandering through all the objects that you've seen before with the new telescope or new equipment.
Hmm.
On January 6th, we have the first quarter moon and I'm going to probably mispronounce this, but the Walthier, Walthier sunrise ray is visible on the moon. That's one of Marie's objects.
Okay, I'm not
Haven't
familiar with this one. I'll have to do some reading.
Yeah, neither am I. Like she come up with some really interesting ones. I would say 90% of which I had never even heard of before,
Wow.
which is awesome. Because I think that people who are interested in looking at these different features on the moon, many of them require telescopes, though people should know for
Yeah,
sure.
that's a good point.
Just like the lunar straight wall, which is
Hmm.
visible on the following night, January 7th. Um, the lunar straight wall is visible, and that's one of those escarpments, I think, isn't it, Shane?
Yeah, yeah, it's I forget how big it is in real life. Like I want to say it's somewhere like 200 to 300 kilometers long. Does that sound
Hmm.
right? Yeah. And
Sounds right.
yeah, and it just looks like a pretty straight line, a black straight line. It's kind of neat.
Yeah. And then on the 7th, we also have from Marie the Eyes of Clavius on the
Oh,
moon, which I'm guessing are a couple peaks in the crater Clavius. And I know we have lots of people out there who will listen and Google and may take a look at some of this stuff. So I'd be curious to hear people's observations on these targets. So Marie's quite the lunar observer. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
have no doubt these are interesting features for people to take a gander at.
I love it too because, I think a number of us astronomers sometimes get frustrated with the moon, or many times we do, because,
Mm,
now we can't observe deep sky stuff as well anyway. But there's just so much to see on the moon. So I love having a few more things to try to hunt down and see what they look like. And, these clear obscure effects are kind of fun. They're neat to see.
yeah. Yeah, and she's curated this. Like this is like this is something she likes to do and sort of had a lot of these at her fingertips when I chatted with her. So she kind of just sort of peeled them off. In fact, I had to edit them down because she had so many. All right, January 8th and 9th, Uranus passes, or the moon passes Uranus on these nights. It gets as close as 3 or 4 degrees for some folks, but for us, we don't see it any closer than like 7 or 8 degrees. So, not
Ooh.
really too much of an event for us. But also on the 9th, we have the jeweled handle visible on the moon. Not sure what that is, but that sounds pretty
Okay.
cool.
Yeah, that's another one I'm not familiar with.
Yeah. January 10th, we have the moon in the Pleiades and Jupiter 5 degrees south of the moon.
Hmm. And this, so should also mention that all of these show notes will be posted on our website, actualastronomy.com. And you've included a number of finder charts for,
Mm.
these planets and various things to look at. And this arrangement here is very neat with Jupiter, the moon, and Taurus.
Yeah, it's one of those things where when you read the notes, and these are all based on like similar data, both for the observer's calendar as well as for the observer's handbook and other things that I have access to. But when you actually run it in the softwares, you can actually see that Aldebaran, Jupiter, and the Moon line up almost looks like a reverse belt of Orion. That's going to look like something, I think, Shane, because they're all about 5 degrees apart, or maybe just over. And I think that's going to be a pretty neat sight. Like, might have to dismount my finder scope and be ready with that to capture them all in the same field of view.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you have binoculars or a wide field telescope, extreme wide field telescope,
Mm.
that'll look really neat.
Also on the 10th, Venus is at its greatest elongation. That means that it's
There we
best
go.
visible in the evening sky because it's going to be about 47 degrees away from the sun, and it's wild how close it gets to the meridian there. I mean, if you
Mhm.
actually start observing it right after sunset, which is something I would recommend with Venus because of how bright and brilliant it is. Really, you're only about maybe 8 or 9 degrees away from the meridian.
Yeah, yeah, it's super close to that.
Yeah, not super high,
Mhm.
but it is close to it. On January 11th, you can see the Wargentin, Wargentin pancake visible on the moon. Wargentin. Wargentin?
Wargentin, Wargentin,
Morganton, I'm thinking would
Morganton.
be it must be a crater. Anyway, we'll let the listeners. There's going to be like a bit of a treasure hunt for listeners. We should have given a calendar away for all the people who go and see all these Marine Unum features. Anyway,
Hmm. Hmm.
January 12th, we have Mars at closest approach, but man, I think it's only whatever it is, 15 arc seconds or 15.6 arc seconds this time. It's
Hmm.
a pretty minimal disk that you can see. Even now, I was looking at it last night, close to 11, and it's not that big. You can start to see some details, but this is just when the details start to become well visible, in my opinion. So good time to get out in the evening and take a look at Mars for sure, especially between about now and the end of January. So I think that's when you're going to be able to see the most details on Mars in this opposition, which sadly is when it's pretty far from us.
Yeah, and you can even tell just naked eye. Just it's not as bright as previous oppositions, and it's unfortunate, but beggars cannot be choosers. So
Yeah,
when it comes to Mars, you look at it every 2 years, no matter what.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean it's fun. It's been fun to take a look, but yeah, and our seeing has just been so poor that
Yes, it really has.
on the 3 or 4 nights I've been out looking at it, I just haven't been able to, like, fleeting details at best, which typically describes Mars anyway. But even last night was supposed to be good seeing, and it was not good seeing, as I think you also commented on.
Well, and that's something that we didn't mention is when we have had a couple of clear nights, like the conditions, like the seeing conditions have been just terrible.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate.
With Mars, you can see things like the polar caps through a small telescope, and you can start to pick up some of the large dusky albedo features. I always say looking at Mars through a telescope is much akin to looking at the moon with the unaided eye, where you're going to see light patches and dark patches, and then you will be able to see the polar caps. Although sometimes what you're really seeing when you look at the poles is a giant cloud feature called a polar hood that can form over them. But in really good conditions and when it's much closer, you can see significant detail.
Mhm.
This time, though, for us with this poor seeing, and it seems like that's very much over much of North America. I was chatting with some listeners who are all over the place, who were commenting on this poor seeing as well. So it's too
Mhm.
bad.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, if people have a telescope, go out and take a look. Maybe you'll get lucky and have some nice views on the January timeframe of
Mhm.
Mars. Carbon star T Cancri or T Cancer is best on the January 12th night as well. So I'm not sure how Marie did it because I think most of the carbon stars are variable as well.
Mm.
And so she selected nights when these stars would be best observed. So we put in a selection of those two.
That's awesome.
Uh,
I really enjoy carbon stars, and if listeners haven't looked at a carbon star or are not familiar with a carbon star, they're just they vary in terms of intenseness and maybe fidelity, but they're basically a red star, and some of them really stand out because of the deep redness or their proximity to other white stars, and they're really neat to observe.
yeah, sadly, after all the Christmas turkey, I'm on a low carb diet.
Oh,
I think I make that joke every year.
maybe.
Uh, let's see. So this was a surprise, and I'm putting these in order a little bit more so than I have before. Thanks to Marie. Should try to have Marie on.
Yeah.
She's something of an observer that I sort of would aspire to be. Um, so she put this on the 12th as well as the best morning to try to take a look at. Like she's just done all the hard work, really.
Hmm.
I like to go out and look at stuff, and I don't mind figuring out when stuff is visible and that, but I don't really wear any badge of pride for figuring that out because there's all kinds of people who figure this out. But she's one of those people that is really good at figuring this stuff out. And so when we're putting these things on these dates now, she's like got it locked down. And this is one of those things that I was really curious about. She's put comet C 2024 G3, this is one of the Atlas comets, I think, as visible best on this morning. And when I ran it in the software, because I didn't know what she was talking about, it came out as 0 magnitude.
Really? Well,
Yeah.
that's exceptionally bright.
Yes. It's exceptionally bright. In fact, if you go, I put a link. She's a bit ahead of her time because you see, she wrote this up. What makes it quite remarkable is you can find some articles. Article on Sky and Telescope I linked in there However, what might surprise most listeners is that she wrote this up about May.
Is this E as in Edward, like E2 Atlas?
G2,
G2 Atlas.
as in Gross Gary. Sorry, G3. Did I say G2? G3 is what I mean.
G3.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at one of these, Visual Comets web pages. I don't see it even listed.
Well, I know. Comet C 2024 G3 Atlas. If I didn't say it right, that's it. And I
Okay.
also linked in the show notes a Sky and Telescope article which details all this
Oh
out.
yeah.
Because when I looked at it, I went, this is not even halfway through making up my notes, and I was like, what? Like, because she put a bunch of these comments in. This is the first one, and I go, whoa, like it really showed up, and I had not heard of this before. And like I said, she sent these through to me like in like late spring. You know, she's way ahead on this stuff. And you can see recently just some articles starting to pop up. So she clearly had her finger on the pulse of something
Yeah.
here that I think most people had missed.
So
Um,
and
Go
will
for it.
it get to northern hemisphere, or is it, I'm on Skyhound and it looks like it might be more southern hemisphere.
It is more southern, but if you look at my little image here for the 12th,
Yeah.
and Sky
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
Telescope's now saying negative 4.5. I mean, people go
Wow.
and I mean, check my numbers here, but or I guess Marie's in this case, but that is
Yeah.
pretty wild to see.
I think we need to sound the comet alarm. Everybody needs to go everybody needs to go check this out, especially if you're southern. And certainly, on the 12th, like you said, it's very visible here. So,
Yeah, yeah. If we get, it's supposed to warm back up towards mid-month. If we get that, because I got some good
yeah.
horizons around, I may like take a couple mornings off work and kind of venture out onto the frozen prairie to look east, young man.
Mhm. Mhm.
That would be because if it gets to negative 4.5, that will just blow off all the shoes, I think.
Yeah, so Skyhound says this may be an interesting comet to follow. So they posted this a while back. It's too soon to predict how bright it will get, and there is a strong possibility that it will disintegrate,
Yeah,
brighten by a magnitude at the end of October, heightening the uncertainty. So
yeah,
very interesting.
yeah, yeah. So when you start going through, because Marie made this up, and I know Marie a little bit. I don't know her super well, meaning that we've never gone for a beer together. But I know her well enough, and by reputation through other people, that people say, "Oh, she's really good at figuring this stuff out." Well, if she did this, then I'm impressed. I'll say that.
Yeah, yeah, I'm glad she did. I was not aware of this comment.
Now, the next one's for Mike because he actually called me and said, when you record the January episode, make sure you put on January 13th the full moon occultation for Mars.
Okay. Largely for North America, it looks like.
Yeah, largely for I think only for North America, but it's 9 p.m. EST. So it's like middle of the evening, perfect timing. These Mars occultations and what being essentially at opposition here within 24 hours of it. Um, wow, this should be pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Like how often do you get an occultation of Mars and the moon pretty much at opposition for Mars? That's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So it should be pretty good. You know what, I think on January 12th, Mars is at closest approach on January 12th, and then it's at opposition on the 15th. So I may have
Oh,
monkeyed that
okay.
up a little bit there, but I have it right in the notes. It's just I'm a little tired from observing last night. I guess that's my good excuse. But anyway, so a full moon occultation of Mars is an awesome event to observe. I observed this on when was it, Rebecca? January or December 9th, 2022, something something like that. Yeah, it was in December of 2022. My wife and I made that observation after an early super cold snap. And I did a sketch of it. I still have it around. I was looking at it yesterday. It's fantastic. one of my
Mhm.
favorite things that I've ever seen.
Mhm.
I did it with my 60 millimeter telescope. Fantastic. One of the best things to see through a small telescope. I think telescope is the best. You can see it with binoculars too, but the best view is definitely with the little telescope. 100%. I'll be doing that again.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. That was one of my favorite observations as well. And I think I did that with a 63 millimeter telemeter, and it was beautiful. It was a great
Yeah,
view.
yeah, right on. Yeah, I mean, it's really, really a nice observation to make. January 14th, you can follow Arcturus into the daytime sky, and January 15th, Mars is at opposition.
Okay.
And then, so all the things that we said about Mars earlier apply to this as well. So really, January is going to be your month for making any kind of real Mars observations. Though some people always go for it before and after. But like I said, I've put a few nights in on it so far, and unless you're getting really good seeing and waiting till it's at the meridian, um, yeah, good luck.
Hmm.
All right, all right. January 17th, Mars and Venus are about 3 degrees apart. I kind of stumbled upon that one just as I was making up these notes. So somehow I missed that when we were making up the observer's calendar. So that would be we're seeing in your binoculars for sure, seeing Venus and Saturn just really 3 degrees apart, just a few finger widths apart. They're going to be right together in the sky. That'll look pretty neat.
Yeah, definitely.
And they're also right by that series of I forget the name of the star, but anyway, there's like a triangle of stars in Aquarius there that they're right beside. So it's a neat area of sky that they're in as well.
Hmm.
January 19th, from Marie, M79 is well placed on that evening, meaning that the object culminates or it's at its highest point, being close to the meridian, and the moon not interfering with your observations of M79 that evening. Since M79 is sometimes one of those targets that dog people when they're trying to do their Messier list, because of its winter time and
Hmm.
poor weather and low declination. So,
Yeah, it can be one of the tougher ones for us anyway, for those reasons.
yeah. And let's see. I think some sources will say that Venus is 3 degrees from the moon on that, or Venus is 3 degrees from Saturn that night. But I ran it in the software, and when I ran it, it's a couple nights closer, but it stays close for a few nights. Anyway,
Okay.
January 21st is the last quarter moon, and January 25th Antares pairs with the moon, and that's an occultation by Antares, uh, or with the moon occulting Antares for New Zealand and Australia. And then also on the 25th, Mare Orientale is visible on the moon. I have seen that. That's worth seeing.
Hmm. Yep.
Again, small telescope on the moon. Yeah, beautiful. I'm going to take my small telescope with me and yeah, maybe try to knock off some of these observations that Marie has put in. What with the winter and all, and being lunar targets, I can just set the old little 60 millimeter up in the driveway and send my critique back to Marie. I don't think it's going to be very critical. January 27th, we have the Winter Star Party beginning. Sure wish I was heading down there. That'd be nice. Wonder if Mark Radici is. He often goes down to that, but he just came back from 3 months or whatever it was in Africa doing
Yeah,
some.
I would imagine 3 months in Namibia. It's time to spend time at home.
I never know with Mark.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah, good stuff. So got to catch up with him. I sent him some photos of the telescope, and on Christmas he was kind enough to reply. He's both a gentleman and a scholar, which I say with hardly any jest because, of course, he's our one of our British correspondents there, and is very much so a gentleman and a scholar. So January 30th, we have a carbon star RY Monoceros. I've seen this one. Well
I don't
placed,
know that I have.
well placed that night. I've seen most of them. We were even
Okay.
looking at one last night. So,
Yep.
and then January 31st, Saturn 1.1 degrees away from the moon. And then we have Venus and Neptune, kind of a set of double planet moon kind of configuration in the sky there.
Mm-hmm. And this is probably the last month to really observe Saturn before it gets too low
Yeah.
on the horizon. So if you want to spend some time with Saturn, or you have not looked at it yet, now is the time. And those rings are really, really close to edge on. So
Yeah.
yeah, kind of a neat view.
Yeah. So that's really all that I have for this month, Shane. Don't know if you have anything to add to it.
No, that's a really good list, and it's neat to have some carbon stars in there, as well as a bunch of things to look for on the moon. So looks like a good month. Hopefully we have clear skies to check this stuff out.
Yeah, and I'm excited to try out some of these new targets that Maria's highlighted. In particular, a stunning prediction of a zero magnitude comet.
Yes.
7 months ahead of time.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, she knocked that one out. So I'm kind of keen to see what else this list holds. So it's kind of cool though in a way, because when you have somebody else that's curating a portion of the stuff like this, it's a little bit of a surprise to me what I'm going to see as we make this calendar up for this year. So I'm actually really looking forward to this. This is not getting old yet, Shane.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Cool. All right. Anything to add to this show?
No, that's all.
All right. Please subscribe. Share the show with other stargazers you know. Send us your show ideas, observations, and questions to actualastronomy@gmail.com. And you can also become a Patreon supporter sooner than later, and then we'll put your name in for the draw for an RASC Observers Calendar. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the show. If you are interested in more information, would like to contact us, or if you would like to support the podcast, check out our website, actualastronomy.com.